So the Content Authenticity Initiative, this was started in late 2019 by Adobe, the New York Times Company, and Twitter in response to very real concerns about the proliferation of mis and disinformation. We kind of use those terms, mis and disinformation, interchangeably, but they have slightly different meanings. Misinformation is the sort of unwitting sharing of misleading or fake information, whereas disinformation is the deliberate sharing of that with the purpose to mislead. But in either case, what we're starting to see increasingly around the world is all sorts of actors using technology to mislead people, either by accident or unwittingly, or in some cases deliberately. We're talking about politicians, we're talking about criminals, we're talking about dictators, we're talking about anybody who really wants to try and influence the agenda, which of course is now much easier because of the advent of social media over the last 20 years or so. And so as Adobe began to look at this problem and become increasingly aware of it, as we all have been over the last several years, we decided that we needed to take on a leadership role here, in part because some of the software that Adobe uses is used by bad actors for nefarious purposes, and we felt it was really important to take on a leadership role. So we partnered in late 2019 with the New York Times Company and Twitter, and we launched this Content Authenticity Initiative. The first thing that we did was to take a look at the misinformation landscape, and we identified four main areas of focus. I'll start with detection, since that's what most people assume the Content Authenticity Initiative is. It isn't, just for the record. But detection is really involving uploading images to computer programs that look for telltale signs of manipulation, whether it's inconsistent pixel structures or lighting sources, or things of that nature. These programs can take a look at a file, whether it's a still image or a video, and detect the sorts of anomalies that could lead one to conclude that the information has been manipulated. Detection has a couple of issues, however. One, it is an interminable arms race with bad actors trying to stay one step ahead of the latest detection software. And secondly, in its current form at least, it's not really scalable. When you think of the billions of images that are bouncing around the digital ecosystems, even if you wanted to just run a subsection of those images through detection software, it would take too long. And so as a result, we think that detection is important, but it's not the main focus of our work here. The next area is legislation. By legislation, we mean interacting with lawmakers and policymakers, and Adobe has a robust government relations team that does just that. And so we advise lawmakers and policymakers about the state of technology, and we advise them what's coming around the corner, and we give them a sense of possible best practices. And so we've been involved with the European Commission, the government of Australia, and most recently we've been involved in supporting an act that's making its way through the US Senate right now, which is the Deepfake Task Force Act, which hopes to establish a deepfake task force under the Department of Homeland Security to look into the nefarious use of deepfake technology, especially important since deepfake or synthetic media is being developed at a rapid clip, and we can expect a massive injection of that kind of content into our everyday media ecosystems. The next area that we look at is education, which is media literacy essentially. And the state of media literacy varies wildly around the world. In some countries it's highly developed and introduced into the education system for children as young as 6 and 7 years old. And in other countries it barely gets a mention, if at all. And so we will be delving into the media literacy space as we carry on the work of the Content Authenticity Initiative. But the main focus of our work here is provenance. And by that we mean understanding where a piece of content comes from, what might be done to it along its journey from capture through publication, and then more importantly perhaps exposing some of that information to the general public so that they can get information that they currently don't have to help them navigate an increasingly complicated landscape. So we are thus a group of major media and technology companies promoting and driving what we hope will become the open industry standard for content authenticity and provenance. And I say open standard because this work is being done open source. In other words, while it will be incorporated into some Adobe products, we want to see it adopted as widely as possible. We started with 3 members back in late 2019, and now we're over 375. In fact, we're closer to 400. These are some of the marquee names that have joined the initiative since inception. So on the media side of things, we see the BBC, we see the Washington Post, we see the Gannett newspaper chain, the largest newspaper publisher in the United States. We have Getty Images, we have Agence France Presse, or AFP, the French global news agency, one of the 3 big ones, along with Reuters and the Associated Press. And then on the technology side of things, we see Microsoft, we see ARM, who make the processors for the Apple operating system. We see Qualcomm, who make the image sensors for the Android system. We were recently delighted to join Nikon, or to have Nikon join us as a member of the CAI, and a host of others. And the community is growing every day. Every day we get more applications. The vast majority of them are institutional members, but we also have a healthy representation of individual members who are concerned about this and want to join us. Our mission is really straightforward. It's all about bolstering trust. And as many of you know, trust is perhaps the most valuable commodity that bolsters media and supports media and is important to media. And we want to bolster trust through provenance data. But you can think about this as a sort of an additional layer of metadata that's not only very robust, and I'll get into that in a second, but that is also tamper evident, that can show when or if people try and falsify it or break into it. And this metadata really shows how content is produced, edited, and published.